Hello and welcome. This is going to be our presentation. This is the Digital Forensic Compilation Report Out. This is going to be Group 1, Federal Government. This presentation will have an abstract. It will go over our 3 different projects that we had during our capstone class this year. Project 1 is going to go over the Globit Summit scenario, and is divided in various sections, which will talk about how we secure our network and provide proper communication channels during that summit. Project 2 talks about how we actually suffer in a breach. And then Project 3 is going to talk about how the breach was actually discovered and resolved. This presentation will talk about the Digital Forensics Compilation Report, which compiles of labs and different reports from projects 1, 2, 3. The labs and reports are accomplished and compiled to establish a secured communication network systems and baseline for the U.S. to participate and share information to authorize partners in the summit. Over the duration of Project 1, 2, 3, the labs and reports detail malicious cyber activities such as a ransom attack and define remediation actions and information assurance controls and regulations that are required to execute and review and reestablish the confidentiality, integrity, and ability of a secured communications network system. The report will be used to provide expert forensic testimony and serve as a reference document. A CSIRT should a similar feature of a malicious cyber activity detected in the future. To start Project 1, again, it establishes a scenario. So it is a global summit where there are multiple countries that are part of the five I, and that are part of this global summit where we need to establish secure communication. Project 1 requires for Team 1 to create a baseline analysis for a secure communication network for our particular team, which is the U.S. federal government. This project will go into detail about how that was actually established. And Project 1 consists of a system security risk and vulnerability assessment, security baseline analysis, and a security baseline scanning lab. To start our systems security risk and vulnerability assessment, in this assessment, it highlights security risk and vulnerability to the network communication systems. It's broken down into threats, risks, and vulnerabilities. So for example, threats can occur to the authentication process and protected credential systems. This includes potential threats include credential stuffing, social engineering, leapfrogging, and these particular attacks are attacks to the authentication process. This can be an issue as they can retrieve credentials from systems and using passwords to get onto other systems. The next section talks about risk, and risk can occur if threats are actually fully exploited. For example, sensitive data may be at risk of exposure, theft, and phase unauthorized changes to particular information. Systems may also be placed at risk of DDoS attacks, ransom attacks, SQL injections, and exposed to malware and viruses. Communication systems may also be broken, taken offline, and preventing users from actually gaining access to those particular systems. Last, this assessment provides a vulnerabilities assessment, which we all know that vulnerabilities are particular weak points that are exploited by particular threats in order to gain access. For example, weak communication systems with no secure servers, lack of strong firewalls, out-of-date operating systems, can be examples of vulnerability. Another example includes leaving the systems without protections, which can be point of entry. There may be physical vulnerabilities. This can include lack of secure facilities, online computers, theft that are left unattended, and unsecured computer rooms. Last, there could be vulnerabilities if there's no strong or their lack of anti-malware and antivirus softwares that are protecting against particular malwares and viruses. Another vulnerability can come from there being a lack of authentication or access control. Unrestricted uploads and unrestricted devices can all be part of weak points where systems can be exploited by threat actors. Next, in our system security, risk, and vulnerability assessment, we also discuss potential mediation and countermeasures that can be done in order to combat particular risk and particular vulnerabilities. For example, having multi-factor authentication systems in place can help with these password cracking softwares that are often used by threat actors. Also having cyber awareness taught to the employees is also a way to mitigate potential successful attacks. Password policies that are clear and require passwords that are a little bit more complicated, whether it be requiring special characters as well as length requirements. In addition, real-time monitoring can also be very effective way to mitigate a potential attack, as it could be caught on as soon as it's occurring rather than waiting until the system has actually been fully breached. During this assessment, we also talk about the public key infrastructure, which is a PKI, and it refers to the various policies, software, hardware, and procedures that are needed to issue digital certificate and manage public key encryptions. A public key can be used by anyone to encrypt a message. We know that encrypting messages can help with the potential interception of that message. This can occur with digital signatures. Well, digital signatures use the PKI in order to ensure transitions are secure, encrypted, and are universally accepted. The PKI also requires provider to use a code in order to generate keys, which are public, and another one is private. They're also used to secure internal communications and have access devices. The key aid is encrypting data authentication and authenticates the identity of who is communicating with those particular devices. This is important in order to secure communications, as it helps with encryption and authentication. The method can be used for communicating with each other or with databases of others that have other servers. Next, Project 1 talks about the Cybersecurity Baseline Analysis Report. During this report, it establishes how to actually secure communication networks during the summit. This report is comprised of 3 different components. First, we look at the Cyber Policy Report, Securing Baseline Report, and a Forensics Analysis Report. These components will provide detailed information about cyber risk and transnational legal compliance as a team, since the U.S. will be partnering with other nations at the summit, and an understanding of how each nation addresses cybersecurity and then their particular outlook of cybersecurity. Anonymous network traffic was detected prior to the start of the summit, and that will also be addressed in detail with the attribution report to include specific information of all the detected IP addresses. A network security checklist was created to also provide a blueprint to create a secure and hardened communications infrastructure for our particular team. The environmental review and analysis was also included in order to provide an overview of the operating environment and detail of how forensic science was to be controlled and analyzed. The environmental review examines forensic laws, regulations of each partner nation participating in the summit in the event that there was malicious activity detected, and a forensics investigation must be conducted. Next, we have the Security Baseline Scanning Lab. During this lab, it provided the results of a secure communication network for the team. So it actually provided an outline of how that was established. Technologies were used to include the one SCAP workbench, and that is used to establish a baseline that conforms with the National Institute of Standards and Technology, their security requirements. Before and after the software was deployed, it was created and established that the NIST requirements were approved by that baseline. The Nessus vulnerability scanner was also deployed to evaluate the systems for known vulnerabilities and provide remedies for them. The Nessus software was actually launched and identified 20 known vulnerabilities that were within the NIST compliant baseline. For example, there were untrusted certificates, weak encryption algorithms, and weak transport layer security versions. So in this slide, we're going to talk about the steps that were actually conducted during the lab. So in step 1, the SCAP workbench was opened and loaded and provided the system's baseline. Step 2 started the customization of the NIST benchmark. Step 3A was actually modifying that baseline and account lockout counter. Step 3B was modifying that baseline and providing the password policy settings. Step 4 was configuring the Nessus scan for the basic scan targeting under the virtual machine. And step 5 was reviewing the basic scan results, which provided the 20 vulnerabilities that were actually found. As requested, the HTML export of the Comprehensive Advanced Nexus report against the NIST compliance configuration baseline was found as an embedded file. Next, we're going to talk about the lab and the analysis and conclusion that was provided by our team. Again, there were 20 vulnerabilities that were found. Steps and action must be taken in order to fix those particular vulnerabilities. For example, so regular software updating was a big part of fixing these vulnerabilities. The use of layered defense approaches, such as using multi-factor authentication and using a comprehensive password management for each system, as well as ensuring that there is real-time internal network security monitor. Another way to help with these vulnerabilities and kind of get rid of them is to enforce messaging signing in the host configuration. This is a security mechanism used to leverage a signature generated by one session key in the advanced encryption standard algorithm in order to validate the integrity of the transmitted data. Also, an untrusted certificate, which makes the systems vulnerable to a man-in-the-middle attacks against the remote host, was also found. This can be resolved by procuring or generating a trusted source socket layer certificate, which is the SSL. Also, increase the strength of encryption and use as the current ones to in order to use the current ones to kind of help with the data that is not encrypted. And last, enabling support for the transport layer security, also increasing that from versions 1.2 and 1.3, while supporting for 1.0. Next, we're going to talk about Project 2. So Project 2 is labeled as Nations Behave Badly. In this project, the Team USA was notified that the host nation intrusion detection system, which is an IDS, actually detected some type of irregular activity. A preliminary investigation indicated that there was a data exploitation and denial of service conditions. Our team was unable to reach network sources outside of the secure communications network. A Wireshark lab and final forensics report was completed and evaluates a packet capture taken during the attack that will provide critical insight into the attack methods and vectors that the threat actors actually exploited. So how did they get there? The final forensics report will talk about the actions that were taken by the CSIRT to determine the attack vector and methods used in systems that were actually impacted. The Five Eyes sharing report will create and distribute to other teams as in order to be transparent and to share the results of the digital forensics investigation of the data that was filtrated and the denial of service. Now we're going to talk about the forensics capture lab. In this lab, an analysis of a file was captured during the malicious cyber activity. Throughout the lab, the TCP and the UDP traffic was analyzed to determine the web browser actually came under attack from a threat actor. The result of the attack is higher latency times and packet transmissions to and from a web browser. During the attack, a series of a TCP GET requests were sent from one server to the threat actor's device. This is going to be the network attack techniques and attack vectors. The web server experienced two types of attacks using similar techniques. As noted in the previous questions for the record, a brutal force attack was implemented against the web server in question. The attack vector also identified in the HTTP protocol packet analysis, looking at a packet sent to the server from an outsider, which was also included passphrases in the attempt to gain administrative access. There was a clear sign of techniques of a brutal attack that occurred. A further analysis was captured that the network traffic was also revealing a DDoS attack against the web server, or the DDoS or denial of service are attacks intended to overwhelm a target with the internet traffic. A sheer quantity of received packages of data of the network by the server was then also a clear indication that the attack vector used the outside entities to try to overwhelm them, and exactly fitting the patterns of the DOS attack. Next is going to be the comprehensive comparison of at least 5 tools used for analyzing network intrusions. Understanding that there are going to be network intrusions, we must also consider tools that can be used for analyzing network intrusions provided by key sources for administrators and quickly identifying exploitation against these acts. I'm going to provide an example. So for example, a tool can be used, which is the SolarWinds Security Event Manager. This is a comprehensive and integrated intrusion detection system that includes the ability of 1, identifying network attacks by type, new network monitoring data into interface, and 3, establishing a comprehensive and alerting through the use of a network sensoring, which is provided real time, and 4, provides a comprehensive reporting capability. A platform where this can be used can be Windows, Unix, Linux, and Mac. This next slide will talk about recommendations for network administrators in order to harden the network requirements. A comprehensive intrusion detection system is needed to harden the web browser. and network infrastructure while ensuring that there's confidentiality of the data transmitted. The network intrusion detection systems are systems of real-time network detection and monitoring with multiple vendors that are included, but not just identify potential exploitations, but also attribute and mitigate any type of vulnerabilities that are actually found. Also, leveraging an intrusion detection system can provide benefits to the server, which includes customizable rule sets for managing adversarial against non-adversarial traffic and the ability to handle multiple platforms and operating endpoints, both which are essential for the server's architecture given that devices for all over the planet and either to be on the network or needed network data. This is going to be the 5 sharing report. This report provides attack information to include a risk analysis and mitigation, data exploitation indicators, and countermeasures, managing endpoints of vulnerabilities, and as well as authentication mechanisms. The report includes practical information for database hardening and security. Firewall and snort rules are also discussed in order to harden the network's infrastructure and prevent malicious code from entering systems and other resources. And the 5 sharing report will also be distributed to the team's partnering nations that are also part of the summit. Next, we're going to talk about Project 3. Project 3 is the actual lockdown. So Project 3, a computer on the secure communications networks within the HR department supporting our team during the summit was compromised with a ransom attack. The threat actors were able to successfully encrypt a folder on the desktop of the victim that was targeted and had cybersecurity documents critical to the team's operation capabilities during the summit. The threat actors demanded for a ransom to be paid with cryptocurrency in exchange for unlocking and returning the files to their original state. The CSIRT was activated to investigate the ransom incident and performed remediation efforts to restore the files without actually paying for the ransom attack and the threat actors. Project 3 also features a ransom lab providing investigative and responsive techniques with 3 situation reports that are detailed in ongoing efforts to eradicate the ransom and achieve the file restoration. Last, a computer security incident report informs the Chief Information Security Officer of the incident, provides the remediation actions and the infrastructure hardening methods to ensure that the attack does not happen again. In this section, we're going to talk about the ransom lab exercise. So this particular exercise focuses on the attack affecting the user's workstation within the HR department. So threat actors were able to conduct a phishing attack to inject the ransom onto the workstation through a compromised internal web server. The SCIRT responded to the incident and discovered a how-to manual left on the web browser that was deployed by the programmer of the ransom. This document provided the CSIRT critical information such as hashes and instructions to execute the ransom. Leveraging forensic tools such as the Wireshark, the OakCrack, and the Our Secret were used to conduct a forensic investigation on the workstation in order to reverse the effect of the ransom and hopefully try to restore the documents without actually paying for the ransom or interacting with the threat actors. Here, when opening the Excel file, the injection of the malicious code begins when the file is updated. The file then requests an update via the external links, injects in the ransom, and an executable ransom file has been injected and file encryption has begun. So if you look on your right side of the screen, you see that once that Excel Word document is open and the links are clicked, then there's that ransom attack where it does not allow the actual file to be open. And this is the screenshot of what we were able to discover. Next, we were able to discover that there was an executable ransom file left on the executable file, and the two files were in the desktop. And that's listed on the top right hand corner is that image. And then the ransom executable has encrypted all files in the ransom folder, which is the bottom image. Now that we have the scenario, our task is to, which is task 2, is the ransom user interaction. So the ransomware infection will perform again on a fresh instance of the WinGT01, and then we're going to use the Wireshark in order to observe the infection by capturing traffic from the DAASL lab interface. Then task 3 was to analyze the network trafficking with the Wireshark. It was uploaded, and then the display filter was used to identify the traffic between the HR computer and then other external hosts. It was discovered that the compromised system communicated with 2 additional hosts, which was one of them was the HR computer, and then the 2 additional hosts, which the IP addresses are listed in the presentation. And then task 4 is to analyze the attack script text file, and task 5 was to examine the info text file. The encrypted contents have been pasted onto a crypt tool for analysis using a monophonetic substitute analyzer. In step 5, the decrypted message in the context of the file was conducted, and the hashtag was uploaded onto the analysis in order to try to crack the password. So the cracked password software was used and resulting in actually discovering the password that was encrypted, which was cyber war. Task 6, it actually examines the image file, and our secret software was used to retrieve the hidden file using that particular password that was found. And then task 7 was the step where password recovery, showing all the identification numbers. Now this information was used. Decrypting the password was then recovered from the compromised web browser. Then the file is open and prompts the password retrieved in the second figure. So the first picture shows us how it still had that ransom display, and then once the password was discovered, it was able to unlock the files, which is listed on the bottom screen. This is going to be the situation report. So the reports were compiled for Project 3 in order to show the chronological that the ransom incident occurred throughout the remediation and subsequent steps prevented for future occurrences of this type of threat. They provided critical information to stakeholders to show exactly what was done and how the issue was fixed. And the information contained within those reports will also assist the CSIRT with any required actions by providing information such as the IP addresses, ports, and IA controls.